Here's Goodnight Olive making her move to take the lead by a head around the far turn. Race Kane has nearly 10 lengths to make up, so does Scooby Quando, verifying the leader. Top of the stretch, Tapit Trice is coming onto the outside. Up to the mark is running late behind Master of the Seas. Set piece down the center of the course. Master of the Seas alongside Annapolis. Here's Elusive Princess coming after Maj, and Mission of Joy tries to find room between that pair. Maj has the lead. Mission of Joy second, Elusive Princess third. The champ in front. Goodnight Olive chased all the way. Tapit Trice! Tapit Trice wins the Toyota Bluegrass.
And we welcome you to week 2 of the Keeneland Spring Meet. I'm Jeremy Plonk from Horse Player Now. Wednesday's action getting underway at 1 o'clock with an 8-race card. Week number 2 of the season here at Keeneland. Features 5 stakes races. We'll give you a sense of what's to come during the course of the week, a little look back at what we had on the racetrack here over the first 3 days of racing on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The big win by Sierra Leone in the Toyota Bluegrass to set him up as one of the top 2 Kentucky Derby choices, along with, of course, Fierceness, the winner of the Florida Derby. We'll also look at all 8 races on the card. We'll give you our overview of the card in the snapshot where the multi-race wagers overlap. It's an 8-race card, so there's a lot of stuff going on in the middle of the card in terms of the multi-race wagers. We'll try to strategize that. And we'll also try to work around maybe raindrops. It's a 90% chance that it's going to be raining on Wednesday at Keeneland. So will we stay on the turf? We're going to have to find out tomorrow on that. If you're watching on the archives and it's already Wednesday, you may know by now if we're going to be on the turf or not. But as we go live 8:30 Tuesday, the night before, we're going to make some assumptions, some handicapping for on the turf, some handicapping if races come off the turf. We'll have to stay flexible here for sure. That's going to really set up the way you advance handicap and way you try to strategize the day. When there is uncertainty, 2 turf races set for Wednesday's card, scheduled for races 6 and race 8. So we will see what Mother Nature has in store for us come 1 o'clock. Be sure to tune in to Today at Keeneland at 11:30 a.m. Eastern with Scott and Gabby each racing day. They'll give you the updated conditions, your first live look at the track. And, of course, you can check out the live cam at Keeneland.com in the live streaming section. Also, if you can get a morning look and get a little advantage, follow social media. Anyway, you can get a little bit of edge on your handicapping. Certainly take advantage of all the assets that are out there and available to you. Again, first post tomorrow on Wednesday will be 1 o'clock. Let's look back a little bit at opening week and what we saw on the main track. The big names were out to shine. 3 wins for Wesley Ward, 3 wins for Chad Brown. No big surprise there. Brown's going to win races here with the big stakes and the major races at the front end of the meet. Guys like Ward, Brad Cox, they're going to have volume to contend for the title at the end of the season. But you're going to see wins early in the meet for sure. Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher, Bill Mott, those guys all won 2 or more races. Phil Bauer won 2 races opening week, so maybe not a name that you had on your radar screen, but Bauer had quite a few starters opening week, but was able to get 2 of them to the winner's circle. Jockeys, no big surprise. Tyler Gaffalione had 6 wins to lead all riders. Not a big week for Luis Saez, but the Ortiz brothers both had 5 wins, Jose and Irad. Now, you look at those top 3 guys who had 5, 5, and 6. The Ortiz brothers and Gaffalione all rode 23 to 26% winners. So they weren't only just producing volume, but they were doing it at a good strike rate, and that's what you want to see. So top riders riding the top horses in the top races, right? I mean, this meet is strong, strong, strong at the front end, and it's still strong throughout the course of the meet, but it's not as strong when you just look at all the graded races that we saw early. You're going to see the top guys, congeal to the best mounts. And so top trainers, top jockeys, obviously off to dominant starts at the meet. It's what you would expect. But your everyday Kentucky stars that you expect, Brian Hernandez, Corey Lannery, jockeys like that, Kenny McPeak, those kind of barns, they're going to have success here as the meet continues to plug on weeks 2, 3, and 4 as we go through 16 days. We're only 3 days into the 16. From a handicapping standpoint, had 8 wins and 30, so about 26, 27% wins here on my end. Got to get up a little bit from that. Not too bad. 57.40 back on the returns. It would have took $60 to play every top pick. So we're $2.60 in the hole after the first 3 days of racing. Not too bad. Big recovery, of course. We had that nice $20 winner in the finale on Sunday. That made opening weekend feel a lot better, getting that nice win. And it's also great momentum towards the second week. Now, we had a couple winners, too, during the week that were 15-1, 10-1 morning lines who got bet down. So they don't really help the ROI, but in terms of helping you with the advanced handicapping, hopefully that did some good. As far as where the horses came from that one opening week, pretty even distribution. 6 winners came via Gulfstream Park, 5 from the fairgrounds, 3 each from Turfway and Oaklawn, and then 2 wins from Aqueduct and Santa Anita. In all, the 30 races were won by horses from 13 different last out venues. Then you add in the first-time starters amongst those. It's just amazing. The melting pot that is Keeneland. I call it the 16-day All-Star game, and it never ceases to amaze. By the time we get to the end of this meet, you're probably going to see in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 different venues represented in the winner's circle from where they last appeared. So horses come from all over the world and win here at Keeneland and all over the United States. In terms of pedigrees, Into Mischief had 3 winners on opening week on the dirt, 2 on the dirt for Arrogate, Munnings, and Street Sense had 2 more. Big year last year for Street Sense. His horses won about 25% on the main track here at Keeneland. He started the meet off, and he's got a couple of horses Friday or Wednesday, Thursday. I've already looked at the first 2 days of the meet. Haven't looked at Friday yet, or the week. Haven't looked at Friday yet, but Street Sense has a couple live ones, it looks like, Wednesday and Thursday already. He could keep that going. On the turf, it was English Channel with 2 winners, Justify with 2 winners. Justify still taking the Ziggy. Hasn't had a winner yet on the Keeneland dirt last year or yet so far this year, but it has had a couple winners on the turf. So maybe the Justifies, like the American Pharaohs, will turn out better on the grass when it comes to some of the offspring. Of course, the big Justify, 3-year-old city of Troy in England for Aidan O'Brien and company. I mean, he's obviously a turf superstar. So let's keep an eye on Justify. Maybe he's going to turn out to be a better turf sire than the dirt, but he had 2 turf winners opening week. That's obviously a very small sample size to talk about, but I think he's like about 0 for 17, 18, 19, something like that with his horses on the main track so far, Justify here at Keeneland. But he's obviously had some good Justifies in this crop. He's got horses towards the Kentucky Derby. They just haven't won here over the track at Keeneland. We'll see how that plays out in terms of your pedigree handicapping. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this Wednesday card. Again, 8 races. Here's the snapshot of how it'll line up. 8 races kick off with the pick 5 in race number 1. You're going to see my key plays of the day coming up in 1, 3, and 4. They're going to be early in the day because races 6 and 8 are the scheduled turf races. And not knowing the course condition, I can't really plan my day around the back half of this card. You know, the late pick 4, the late pick 5 with 2 turf races of uncertainty. You can't advance, scout, and kind of map out your day and really hone in on the back half of the card. So I'll focus on the front half of the card, and then we'll adjust on the back half after we see scratches and changes a little bit closer to go. Early pick 5 starts in race number 1. The early pick 4 will start in the second. So that means the early pick 5 will be races 1 through 5. And that's going to include both the early and late pick 5 in race number 5. The early pick 4 will start in race number 2. So that'll be races 2 through 5. So where I put swing, these races swing to the early and late wagers. Race number 4 is going to be part of the early and late pick 5. It's going to be part of the early pick 4. The race number 5 on the card is going to be part of the early pick 5, the late pick 5, the early pick 4, and the late pick 4. So race number 5 is really critical. Now, I'm not going to call it a key play because when we get around to that race, I think we've got a short price favorite who's going to win that race. It may not be a great wagering race, intra-race, but when you're looking at that key swing in race number 5, again, part of the early and late pick 5, early and late pick 4, all run through race number 5. I think we've got a short price favorite who's going to win in there. Now, in race number 5, if you're against the favorite in there, you could be looking at some real boxcar payoffs in the pick 4s and pick 5s on Wednesday's card. If you're for the favorite, like I am in race number 5, you're looking at pick 4s and pick 5s that may not be the huge return. So you're looking at playing smaller tickets, right? If you think a pick 5 or a pick 4 in a particular day is going to pay $200, $300, $400, you're not going to put a $70, $80 ticket into it to try to make $300. That's not good gambling. But if you think it's one that could pay $4,000 or $5,000, the $70, $80 ticket is worth the shot. So assess what you think the favorites may do in the key spots. If you think the favorites are going to click, like I do in race number 5, the key swing race today on Wednesday's card, then you're probably looking at smaller returns. That just means maybe you're playing a $30 ticket, a $20 ticket instead of a $70 ticket. And if you want to play it 2 or 3 times, now you hit it, it pays $300. You have it 3 times and you get $900 back. That's the way you want to kind of strategize and attack those multi-race wagers. Want to remind you, the daily doubles, great wager here at Keeneland with the reduced takeout from 22% down to 15%. That 7-point cut is more money back in your pocket. Daily double handle was up every day of the first 3 days of the meet, up exceedingly high on Saturday's card, where an all-time record handle was bet for a single day at Keeneland in all pools on Toyota Bluegrass Days. So thank you for sending it in to the players out there. Hopefully we're helping you out. And let's get to some handicapping now on this 8-race card. To the Keeneland Handicapper Selectors Box we go next, where the 8 races line up this way. It'll give you a chance to see how Scott Hazelton, Tom Leach, myself, Gabby Gaudette, and Kim Nelson see the card from across the line here. You can kind of see races where there are 4 or 5 of us taking different horses in a race. You can also see where we'll all have some opinion that's all gelled together and where those favorites may come from. So that's a look at the Handicapper Selectors Box for the entire card. Let's just talk about it specifically race by race now. Let's start in the opening race on the card. It's a 6-furlong maiden claimer. This is a situation where the Fairgrounds horses have done well in these maiden claiming sprints over the years. So I'm looking towards the Fairgrounds horses in here to have a good shot. Goldie's Lock for me at 12-1 in the morning line is the Fairgrounds rep in here. I'm on the island, the only one taking this one for trainer Michelle Lovell. I like the class drop in here. This horse has been running maiden specials, dips in here for the maiden claiming tag. By Firing Line ran well on off tracks. We'll see if this one handles a wet track. The career debut at Churchill Downs really wasn't ready to run that day. 9-1. It's not a barn that comes asking first out. So I'm not so sure this horse disliked the slop when running 4th that day. Maybe it can handle it a bit better. I like the 5 in here. Goldie's Lock is a nice price. And again, as we talk about our key plays of the day, this is going to be right off the get-go because you've got a 12-1 morning line proposition. And again, uncertainty later in the card. I think there's a heavy favorite in race number 5. Races 6 and 8 are off the turf. So these key plays early in the card, maybe on like a 12-13 race card where you've got 3 key plays, maybe you really love them. Here, we're just trying to find some good plays early in the program to go after these races on the Wednesday card. So I'm going to go with the 5 in race number 1, Goldie's Lock. As far as the other handicappers in this race, you got Charm of the Song picked on top, Up the Creek. The 2 and the 4 are the selections from the other handicappers in here. Blue Eyed Soul for Wesley Ward is a horse who I figure will get a lot of play. Blue Eyed Soul 2-1 in the morning line and has a win, or I should say a second place finish over the track and a second last out at Turfway. So would be no surprise at all. Blue Eyed Soul's part of this. So 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, if you kind of look across the way with the handicappers as you kind of sort your way through race number 1. Now we talk about Wesley Ward with Blue Eyed Soul in race number 2. He could be the favorite there. Ward could be looking at a daily double because race number 2 is a race for the 2-year-olds in here. And of course, this is Wesley Ward territory. Ward's got 2 entries in here as we kick off the pick 4. The pick 4 starts with one of these 2-year-old baby races. So the good thing is for a pick 4 player, you get to see the horses pre-race. You get to see the tote action, all that. So you have a little advantage playing the pick 4. When you've got a 2-year-old race here as leg 2, maybe you want to play the pick 4 more so than the pick 5 on this card because you'll get to see race number 2 and these babies before they go to the post. In race number 1, when you start off and bet the pick 5, you're not going to get to see them ahead of time. So you're going to be betting these somewhat blindly. Now, the one advantage you might have if you're astute, look at the daily double probable payoffs in race 1 to race number 2 and kind of follow where the payoffs are going in the race 2. And that'll give you a sense of what the tote action is going to be in the second race. So you'll know that while race number 1 betting is going on, check out the daily double probables as they're scrolling and see who's getting bet hardest in the second leg of the daily double. And that will give you some sense of where the action will be if you're playing the pick 5 starting in race number 1. But you got to figure the Wesley Ward horses number 1 raise the bar. And the also eligible Bostonian in here, the 15, would be the horse for me if Bostonian draws into the field. Now, again, it doesn't mean because you're the 15 that you need 3 scratches to get in. It's a random draw amongst the horses for the also eligibles. So there could be a situation where one horse comes out, Bostonian left luckily draws in, and the 13, 14 do not. So we're just going to have to see, just like much of this card is, we're going to have to wait for the scratches and changes for the turf course a little bit later. Same way, I've got 2 also eligibles picked early in the day. Race 2 and race 4, I've got horses on the also eligible list that I think are the winners if they get in. So we're going to have to stay flexible here, and we're going to have to kind of play the break, as they say, as this card gets underway. But raise the bar, the one for Ward, obviously a McLean's Music first time starter. McLean's Music, very good with the young horses. This is a Texas bred. Johnny V rides. Ward wins, 45, 46%, something like that in these 2-year-old races. When he has Johnny V, it jumps up like 10 more percent. He wins about 55%. So raise the bar with Johnny V named there. Of course, he's named on Bostonian as well. Whichever one gets in and has John Velasquez aboard is the one that you want to take on top, in my estimation. I'm surprised the other handicappers are not taking the Ward horse on top here. Now, we've had 2 2-year-old races so far at the meet. Ward won one. He did get beat in the second when we had an all-time record payoff for a 2-year-old race here on the dirt, 90-some bucks with that big long shot winner on Sunday. But for me, you go back to Wesley Ward. 15 or 1, however you want to slice it there. Tuxedo Park, Cupid's Thunder, Ace, and other horses picked by the public handicappers. So some uncertainty in race number 2 in terms of which horse will stay in the field for Ward, and or if both might potentially run in there if they can get lucky enough to draw in off the also eligible list. One of the races where we have a decent feel for who's going to be in and how it will shape up is race number 3, and that starts the pick 6. No carryover in the pick 6 going into the Wednesday card. This will be my second key play early in the day, and that's going to be number 2 in here, Center Stage. I like this jock trainer combination of Esquivel and Machado. They've only teamed up 7 times. 4 of those wins, a second and a third. The winners paid $8, $9, $9, and $29. So this jock trainer combo gets you back $4.01 for every dollar you've bet. I like that. Center Stage for me on top, almost completely on the island. Center Stage only picked by Kim Nelson in there in the second spot. This is a $30,000 starter allowance. You're not looking for huge prices in these races. Typically, the favorites are strong. They win about 47% in starter allowance sprints, and the average winner is about 5 to 2 odds. So taking Center Stage in here at 6 to 1 is getting a little bit off the norm. But, let's see how the public bets in here. Maybe Center Stage will take a little bit of money in here and be live on the tote. I would take a bigger price. You're never going to tell me that 5 to 1's not better than 5 to 2. I'll take that every day of the week. But, if this horse happens to get bet, it won't surprise me. The buyer figures say the horse is, maybe the second fastest horse in the race. So I think this is one that could get bet down off the morning line a little bit. I'm on Center Stage in this particular case. The other handicappers in here, heavy to the 7, Anna's Wish. Anna's Wish is my second choice, and why not with Anna's Wish, right? She's coming out of the Cicada Stakes last time out, and that was at Aqueduct. It was only a 4-horse field, though, third beaten 12, so don't get completely fooled by the great stakes line there. But Anna's Wish should like the track here at Keeneland by Dialed In. Has some pace about her. She's shown speed going 6 furlongs. You want to be near the front in these particular races. I don't think you want to be too far off of it. And I thought Center Stage could get near the front in here too. There's a decent amount of pace in the race, but 6 furlongs on the main track at Keeneland anytime, you don't want to be too far off of it. And if you watch the races here opening week, we saw a lot of early speed do well, obviously, in the 1-turn races. In the 2-turn races, they played very fair. Early speed dominated the 1-turn races, though, opening week. Now, what changes a speed bias or a track that's, playing one way or another? Weather or track maintenance. Those are the 2 things you have to always say are the factors that change things up. Well, the weather's different. We're getting rain here in Lexington. It's supposed to rain more on race day. So the condition of the track's going to be different than it was opening day. And they've had a couple days to do track maintenance. So, check the maintenance reports and see at Keeneland.com. I don't think that the track will be, drastically changed in the maintenance department because there weren't excessively fast times put up last week. That's when a track's going to go in and make maintenance changes. Let's say every 6 furlong race is going 109 and change. They're going to try to slow the track down because they don't think it's safe at that point. That, the track needs to be loosened up a little bit and not so hard and compacted and tough on the horse's feet while they're getting over it so fast that they're putting up blistering times. The times were not blistering opening week, but the pace did obviously hold in the sprint races, no question. But in the routes, I think there were 5 routes, only 1 horse, 1 on the front, couple from stalking type mid positions, And then Sierra Leone came out completely last, the first to win the Bluegrass Stakes. So very fair going around 2 turns. But I don't think you're going to see any kind of major maintenance change this week, again, because of the times. Now, if we catch a situation here during the course of the meet when they're running very fast times for an entire card or 2 days or something like that, then sometimes the track maintenance crew will go in a little deeper, dig up the track and soften things up a little bit. And then you could see running styles change in terms of what's successful. But I think if there's any change to the running that we see this week, it's going to be more weather related than anything. All right, so from race number 3, let's move on to the 4th race on the card. This will be my 3rd key play early in the program, and this is a swing race. This means race number 4 is going to be part of multiple multi-race wagers. Race number 4 is part of the early pick 5, part of the early pick 4, and starts the late pick 5. So race number 4 is part of 3 different sequences. This is a 1.125 maiden claimer. We don't get a lot of these races at Keeneland. A 1.125 at the bottom level maiden claiming. We've only had 6 of these in the database. 5 of the winners though were very short prices. 4 favorites. 5 of the winners were 5-2 or less. These races have been pretty chalky in limited experience. So let's move to race number 4 and figure out where we go in this particular spot. I thought the 14 Cool Operator on the big drop from the Aqueduct Maiden special weight ranks for Danny Gargan. Of course, he had door knocking here this week and teams up with Tyler Gaffleone here. If Cool Operator draws in, blinkers on with Early Speed. Early Speed has done very well in these 6 1.125 races at the maiden claiming level. 5 of them were essentially front runners. Only 1 closer won. I would think that Cool Operator is going to be very tough if drawing in. 1.125, you got a little bit more run to the first turn. It's not the best position to be in, obviously, from the far outside, but the 14 to me would be the horse to beat if in. Another one to consider in here, I think, is the 6 Quiet Rush. Now, this would go against, of course, the idea that favorites are going to be tough in these spots. This is a horse who's 15-1 in the morning line for Rusty Arnold. I'm not sure you're going to get 15-1 because the last time at Turfway, if you want to draw a line through that race, not liking the synthetic, the dirt form's actually pretty good, pretty decent for this horse. Showed some speed for 50,000 at Churchill going a mile before backing out of it. So I think down to the $20,000 level, stretching out from the 1-turn mile, I think Ashton can put this horse near the front, and we like speed in these 1.125 races at this cheap class level. So I thought the 6 Quiet Rush is worth an interesting look in here and going to be a fair price. I think we're going to get a good price in here. So as you look across the way, money, Memolo, the 1 is a top pick in here for Gabby and Scott. This runner's 12-1 in the morning line for Matt Sims, coming off a 3rd place finish for 50 at Turfway, switching over to this from the synthetic to the dirt for the first time. Look, there's a lot of questions when you're going 1.125 a maiden claiming race. This is like the nobody wants to be here. You just end up here race, right? I mean, if you've got a good maiden, you don't want to be running for maiden 20. You're at the bottom. If you've got a good maiden, chances are they're fast and brilliant. They're not running 1.125 within the first couple starts of their career. And if you're like number 4, Curlin's in Charge, you're in your 15th start of your career, and you're just trying to find the right group of friends that are slower than you are. So this is a situation in race number 4 where nobody wants to be here. They just kind of end up here. 12 top of the street for Kenny McPeaks in that kind of same situation, making the 10th career start. These horses could absolutely win top of the street. Curlin's in Charge. But again, they've had 23 starts between the 2 of them. Take your chances and let the race and pace fall where it may. Pedigree play in here, maybe in race number 4, the 10 Stately Order by Street Sense. We talked about him having 2 winners opening week, 5 winners last year at Keeneland at a nice percentage. So a couple different options in here, but I definitely like the 14 and the 6 are my 2 plays. And so let's see who ends up in the field and how it shakes out in terms of the also eligible. But I'll take those 2 chances as a key play here early in the card as we move on to the 5th race next on the program. And 5th race, before we get to the picks, let's switch back to the snapshot here because I want to remind you this is where the late pick 4 starts. And this is really the major swing race of all 4 multi-race sequences. And if you include the pick 6, all 5 multi-race sequences on the card. Race number 5 ends the early pick 5. It ends the early pick 4. It's the second leg of the late pick 5. It's the kickoff leg of the late pick 4. And of course, it's the third leg of the pick 6. So everything in race number 5 counts when you're playing multi-race wagers. If you don't get this one right, you don't get any of the multi-race wagers. I mean, think about it in that respect. There's no way you can hit a multi-race wager, a pick 4, a pick 5, or pick 6 on the card without having race number 5 correct. So Put your extra handicapping time into this particular race. If you can find something that you really like, then great. If you concede to the favorite, then again, you're probably looking at smaller payoffs than usual when it comes to the multi-race bets. I think the favorite's going to be tough in here. The name is Samarita. Samarita's 8-5 in the morning line. I know this is the first start of the year, but I feel good about this one coming back to Keeneland with a win over the track here in the past. Fresh horse, and I think 10 for 27 lifetime, trying to run out some starter allowance string here. Last time at Keeneland in the fall meet, they were not touching Samarita. Let's go back and take a look at this impressive victory against similar company.
Back of the leader, Samarita, and now Invaluable switches lanes to the outside to try to come after Samarita, who's approaching the 8th pole, and there's still 5 lengths between this pair, and Samarita's kicking on into the final furlong. Invaluable still far back in second, 5 more back of her, and She Dazzle is third. Samarita, Ray Gutierrez aboard. Samarita, a convincing winner. Invaluable was home second. She Dazzle third. If I Had a Chance was fourth.
So cruise control that day, I think back in starter allowance company, horses tend to run them out in starter allowances. Once you get eligible for these kind of races and you can stay in that eligibility for a year or two by the conditions, they tend to rack up big numbers. 6-time winner last year. I look for Samarita to come right back and win here. Jose Rodriguez doesn't have many horses in the stable, but the ones he has win at a decent percentage. I look for Samarita. The other one is Proto Magic, the 8. Very consistent. This horse won 4 in a row in starter allowance company. Last time out, ran into some traffic in the stretch, has been well bet each and every outing. And another horse who's so consistent, the 8 Proto Magic. Look at that record, 36 starts, 18 times first or second, 50% in the exacta, 8 wins and 10 second place finishes. So would not be surprised if this is just 10-8, 2 very consistent horses in here that I think that you can count on to deliver their effort. The 1 Goshen, top pick in here for Scott. Ghostly Knight, the 3 top pick in here for Tom Leach. Ghostly Knight, a winner over the track, won pretty much wire to wire in the slop in the fall. So if you're looking at an off track, you know, Samarita obviously has run on an off track and won at Hawthorne, has 2 wins and 4 starts on an off track. Ghostly Knight has 2 wins on a wet track as well. So look at the wet track form and try to, you know, sort out horses who run well over it. You always want to find on a wet track, I think, horses with some early speed. You want to stay out of the kickback and the slop the best you can. And horses who have run well over the off track is the number one thing you want to look at when handicapping for a wet track. So those are the keys to race number 5. Let's go next up to the 6th race on the card. 6th race, we kind of get to the back half of the program now, and it's uncertain, as we talked about. 6th race is an allowance, first level, scheduled for a mile on the turf. We don't know if we're going to get this race on the grass, but if we do, Turf Miles, as we mentioned on Sunday, and that produced our nice $20 winner. Turf Miles are havens for horses coming back first start of the year off of long layoffs here at Keeneland. We had that nice 9-1 winner on that same type of angle. I think if you're looking at horses in this race who are coming off that kind of layoff, maybe the 7 Carcano's one to look at, the 9 Mischievous Angel, the 10 Battle of Normandy. Those are the horses, and Tiverton, the 2, also coming off a long layoff. So you got some layoff options in this particular spot. But I like a horse for another reason in Malibu Springs. I think Malibu Springs will be versatile whether we go on the turf or whether we are on the main track in here. And so Malibu Springs is going to be my top pick in race number 6. Also the top pick for Scott in here. Quality Road had 4 winners on the turf last year at Keeneland from just 19 starters. So well over 20% there. Nice numbers from that for Quality Roads running here on the turf. Malibu Springs is a horse who's just consistent, 4 straight good efforts. 3 of those on the turf, 1 on the main at Gulfstream. I think this is a horse who can run on either surface. He ran decently here before backing up in a mile and a 16th Keeneland race in October. So I think he's a horse who can handle either surface. I like Malibu Springs, but not a strong endorsement in this particular spot. I think there are other options where you can find, but the other options are shorter prices. So I'm trying to find a little value here. You know, turf route allowance races, favorites only win 28% in here. I'm just a little reluctant to just settle on a short price. I want to find myself a horse who's got a little bit of value and price to him, like we did on Sunday. So Malibu Springs 10-1 in the morning line. Battle of Normandy makes a lot of sense for Shug McGahee. Classy coming off the layoff, first start of the year. If we're on the turf, Battle of Normandy can play in this spot. If it's on the main track, you got to think that one probably comes out of the race. So we'll see how this shakes out. None of the horses are entered main track only, and honestly, the also eligibles aren't loaded with dirt form. Maybe the 16 Dissolved moves up at this race, is able to draw in the race and runs on dirt. But I think, if this race goes to the main track, that's why I kind of like Malibu Springs either way. I like the turf form. I like the dirt form. Quality road, good on either surface. Carcano, the 7, obviously moves up if this race is on the main track. So on the main, you're probably looking at 4, 7, 16, something like that, as the key players in this particular spot. But on the turf, I'm kind of looking at it as 4, 10, and then the 12 Pokerol, the international, not international bred. He's just got a French name. He's got French owners with a French name, but all American bred there out of an Indian Charlie Mare by Speightstown. So the 12 would be one to consider off the debut at Gulfstream if this race stays on the turf. But we'll sort it out that way. 4, 10, 12 for me on the turf. If we go to the main track, then the 4, the 7, and the 16 are probably the right ones to take a look at in there. Okay, 7th race next up is our allowance feature on the card. First level allowance, some Triple Crown nominees in here, including Rocketeer, who was a nice debut winner by Curlin here during the fall meet. Rocketeer, my top choice in here for trainer Brad Cox. This horse drew off by 4 lengths in a sprint race. Now go sprint the route. Brad Cox does exceptionally well, over 30% with horses going a mile and a 16th here at Keeneland. Curlin had an exceptional year last year, more wins on the main track than any sire, especially when they go long. So Rocketeer should absolutely stretch out and run well. Comes with an awful bullet workout at Churchill. I think the 5 is going to be a major player in here. I don't think we're going to look at any kind of great prices. I think the 2 Native Land is the other logical player off a big win at Oaklawn by 6+ lengths. He's 3-1 in the morning line. And then Harton, the 3, is a horse who's probably going to get a lot of play in here as well, coming out of the Tampa Bay Derby. I wasn't totally enamored with that race in the Tampa Bay Derby. It was a slow pace, and he didn't have the best chance in there. But this is a horse who's just, I don't know. I think he's going to be overbet in this particular spot. I don't have a super big knock on him. I just don't think he's one of Pletcher's, A horses. And, at a first level allowance after 6 starts, that's probably self-defining that he's not one of the A horses for the barn. But I'll take my chances against Harton in here. But, you may respect it and go a little deeper. I think 5, 2, 6 are the must-use in here, perhaps. More Vino, the 6. I like that Pletcher better coming off the 1 career race. By Vino Rosso, $400,000 Keeneland September yearling versus the $55,000 purchase Harton. So, you're splitting hairs with the Pletchers, but I think with Rocketeer and Native Land, the 5-2, you probably get through this race with one of those 2. And if you look across, the 5-2 are the top picks for a couple of us, but the 3 Harton, the 6 Morvino do get some, play from some of the other handicappers. So not a strong opinion in this race. And, I don't think we're going to get a huge price. So again, this is why my key plays as we go back to the snapshot. My key plays are going to be earlier in the card. The uncertainty and the lack of, really honed in opinions later in the card at prices, like Rocketeer and Native Land, I don't have a big distinction between the 2 of them, and they're probably going to be first and second choice or second and third choice. So you're asking a difficult decision without a great reward in making that difficult call. So for me, not something that's going to really lure me in all that strongly in race number 7. Okay, 8th and final on the card, we've got the Toyota Super High 5 in this race. The 8th is a second level allowance race, mile and a 16th on the turf. And we wrap things up here with our top choice, Reckoning Force. This is a 15-1 morning line price. This is a pick for the turf, not for, I don't think we're going to see this horse if we go to the main track. Brendan Walsh trains, blinkers on, so we're hoping this one can stay on the turf. I like the race here at Keeneland last April. Second start off the layoff, a winner over the course. Equipment change first time back. They get the rail, they get Pratt. I think they'll be fairly forwardly placed with the rail with a pretty good aggressive jockey in Pratt. and the blinkers going on, I think this horse can sit a good trip near the front of the pack. Has some pace versatility, sometimes fires, sometimes doesn't. I think the one just goes, and in this particular situation, I think that's the best scenario in this race. Just go and see how far you can take them. Pipeline, the 7, is another pace player in here. I think the pace can hold in this race. The 1 and the 7 are the ones probably most likely to go set some of it, along with the 3, Deer District. So 1, 3, 7 are probably the horses who are going to be forward in here, and I think they control the race. That's kind of the way I'm leaning in here. Deer District, the 3, better on the dirt probably than on the turf. So if this race comes off the turf, then Deer District obviously becomes a real player inside speed at a mile and a 16th on the main. Deer District, the horse to beat more than likely if we're on the main track. Pipeline, the 7, obviously would be a major player on the main track. And amongst the also eligibles, there's really nobody on the AE list that I feel like you got to jump in a main track only situation. So if we're off the turf, this is 3 and 7, and I really like the speed to control it. But on the turf, it's 1, 7, 11, 3, the way I have it. The 11, the best of the turf horses from off the pace. Had a tough post draw last time at Gulfstream. Another post draw that's not going to be easy from out there, but should come running. American Pharaohs run decent here on the turf, and Rosario up for Safi. So I've got it 1, 7, 11 in the nightcap. Couple different players. Greek Order picked on top in here. The British bred, Bill Mott, Kingman, first-timer coming over. Was running against lesser stock over in Europe, but those races obviously are going to stack up with the allowance horses in the U.S., but not your typical Euro coming over with, massive form running in big races. Those were Class 3, Class 4, some of those. So lesser ranks, but it's Bill Mott, it's Irad Ortiz. And if this is on the turf, I mean, obviously a horse with experience on the soft and heavy ground, the 2 Greek Orders got to be in your consideration if we stay on the turf in this particular spot. So I'm probably remiss in not including the 2 there in my top 3. But if you're going to play multi-race wagers and this race stays on the turf, you're definitely going to want to use the 2 in here, Greek Order. Don't get beat by that one if the conditions are soft and we stay on the grass. So not a lot of help on some of the races here. This is why we're looking ahead, right? We're looking ahead to see a card that we're going to spotlight where we really like a few plays and go after them. We're going to stay loose and see what the tote board looks like as the day progresses. Keep an eye on the changes. It's hard to do handicapping selections for off turf because you don't know who stays in the field, right? Maybe 3 of the speed horses all scratch out. And now all of a sudden you've got a lone front runner in a race where you thought there was a lot of pace. So to give you dead set selections on an off turf situation is really almost impossible to do because, again, we don't know how the race is going to shape up until we know who's out of the race and who's staying in the race. So we'll continue, even if the weather forecast is wet, to give you the first look here during the Keeneland Look Ahead. And be sure to check out social media. Follow me at Horse Player Now on Twitter. I'll update there. I also in contact with the graphics department at Keeneland. So when we have scratches and changes and alterations to the picks, they will be reflected on the simulcast feed. When you see my top 3 selections for the races show up there, they will be updated as the day goes on. So keep an eye out for that. A big week of racing here at Keeneland. Before we go, I want to let you know here's the stakes schedule coming up for this week. Friday, we have 2 stakes races, the Limestone and the Maker's Mark Mile. $600,000 Grade 1 Maker's Mark Mile includes last year's Breeders' Cup Mile winner. So we've got a fantastic field lining up for that one. On Saturday, we have the Giants Causeway, the Jenny Wiley for distaffers on the turf, Grade 1 there. And last chance for Kentucky Derby points in the Lexington Stakes. Give you a couple looks at some of the fields here that we have coming up. The Maker's Mark Mile, here's the entries. These fields are all drawn already. If you want to get advanced handicapping, you can go to your favorite past performance provider and download your past performances for all the races this week at Keeneland. They're all drawn and set to go. Maker's Mark Mile, I believe Du Jour is going to come out of there. Marcus Hirsch from Racing Forum reporting that. So we may have a scratch at Du Jour coming out of the Maker's Mark Mile. But Integration, Master of the Seas, of course, Master of the Seas, the winner of the Breeders' Cup Mile last year. Excellent field in there. Cheryl Spite won this race 2 years ago, trying to win it at age 7. Also coming up this weekend on Saturday will be the Jenny Wiley, Chad Brown in a distaff race on the turf. You know he's going to be well represented, and he is. Fluffy Socks entered in here, Gina Romantica, Surge Capacity, Beau Cachet, 4 of them for Chad Brown amongst the 10 entries. Star Fortress was impressive at Churchill last year, trying to get back on the beam if she's in the race. Didia, a horse who on her best is as good as it gets here in North America as far as turf mares go. So a great looking field for the Jenny Wiley coming up on Saturday. And also on Saturday, we've got the Coolmore Lexington Stakes, Stone Street Lexington Stakes. My apologies. Stone Street Lexington features, I think, 3 horses who could factor in the Kentucky Derby point situation with a win or maybe even a second place finish for Encino. Liberal Arts and Hades, I should say, can get in with a first or second place finish potentially. It looks like Encino is going to need a win and Liberal Arts would need a win to get to the Kentucky Derby. But I would think Encino or Liberal Arts, if they can win on Saturday in the Lexington, both of those horses are exotic threats in the Kentucky Derby. So I'm very excited to see how the 8-9 perform in here. A lot of respect for Hades. I wouldn't like Hades in the Kentucky Derby going 1.25 miles, but I think he could be very effective in the 1.16 Lexington Stakes on Saturday. But if you're looking for Derby horses, the 8 and 9, Encino and Liberal Arts are horses that are quite interesting coming up on Saturday in Lexington. We'll talk more about that as the week goes on. We're 1 day into this 5-day racing week and day 4 of the 16-day meet now previewed for you on Wednesday. I'll be back on Wednesday night, 8:30 Eastern, to take a look at the Thursday card. Again, rain expected most of the week here at Keeneland, so we're going to keep up to date with the conditions, and we're going to stay flexible with our handicapping, and we'll take a look at that Thursday card for you tomorrow night. Between now and then, have a great Wednesday playing the races at Keeneland, and have a great night, everybody.